Okay. I just realized it would have been a lot more refreshing if I had, or hilarious if I had actually decided to wait until after, until the start of the next video, in order to, start a recording right after I got out of the shower, which, that's why my hair is wet, because, yeah, I needed a shower anyway, so either way, right? So, Aftermath slash King of Duelists. I've never thought, I haven't been really commenting on titles so far. Well, okay, that's a lie. I've commented on it a couple of times where I've just been like, why is the Japanese version, like, I commented on it like twice specifically. I think it, or no, at the beginning, I think I was commenting on it a little bit. For example, with, episode 1, all the way back at the beginning, I mentioned, the difference between the titles, and of course I mentioned it with Best of Friends, Best of Duelists. But anyways, before I get too sidetracked on that, this episode actually gave me more to work with than I thought. An entire page of notes, as opposed to just, a couple of things. I've got a decent chunk of things to say about this one. I was surprised. But, of course, the first thing I want to mention, actually, which is funny, is the last thing I wrote down, ironically enough. And that's my preference. I wrote down, for preference, I usually write, sub, dub, or neither, and a little comment right beside it if I have a comment about, why a choice was made. For example, all the way back at Ghost Kaiba, if I can flip back to it. Here we go. I said that, I literally, well, I put it in brackets, but I declared that, that it was my preference was in the dub, and it was barely in the dub, which was surprising because again, whether or not you call that nostalgia is up to you. I think there was one that I basically said, yeah, I'm giving this to the dub because of nostalgia. Give me a sec. Right, it was Champion versus Creator. I knew it was one of the episodes. I wrote down that it was because of nostalgia. This one is neither. Now, why is that? Well, for some, as I state my notes, for some weird reasons. See, how do I phrase this? If you swapped some of the dialogue from the some of the dialogue in this, some of the dialogue and execution of this episode in the sub with how the dub handled it, like if you can basically combine the best parts of both the sub and the dub, this would be a fantastic episode. The problem is that this episode, it doesn't. It has two different executions, and therefore things that are good in one are not necessarily going to translate well to the other side, and vice versa. So yeah, there's small things that the sub does that is actually kind of neat. Basically, there are basically plot ideas in the sub that I wish were in the dub, and then there's plot elements from the dub that I wish were in the sub, but we can get into that as we go. The first example is actually right here. See, in the Japanese version, Pegasus is just talking about Yugi and his Millennium Puzzle, and he's never seen two minds, and blah, 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 hinting at the idea that he never really saw that there were two Yugis. Only that there was, well, which in and of itself is actually a plot hole if you think about it, because he knew there were two Yugis. Whatever. I prefer it in the dub because he acknowledges that he didn't actually, like, because the dub makes it clear that he didn't really know that there were two Yugis, just that Yugi was tapping into the power of his Millennium Puzzle, right? Well, I prefer the idea that Pegasus is a man of his word, and that's why he releases the souls. Because he just does it. Now, granted, he spells it out plainly that, that keeping their souls in bondage isn't going to help him any. Like, he literally says, keeping their souls in bondage isn't going to do anything for me. And besides, I'm a man of my word. And so he releases the three souls. So, that's a good thing. So then Yami Bakura shows up and basically uses dual monster cards as tarot cards and speaks of a battle on the shadow game on the landscape of their minds, right? After the tarot card reading. Now, to go to the tarot card reading thing, I actually find that an interesting concept. Interesting, but a bit goofy, admittedly, because it's a trading card game. Tarot cards are supposed to be, you have all of the tarot cards, and then a fortune teller uses that same set of cards to, tell a person's fortune. To quote Persona 4, or each reading is done with the same cards, and yet the outcome is always different. Life itself follows these same principles, don't you think? Right? I might be misquoting because, as I tend to screw up small little bits, but you get my point. Right? In the dub, he just starts blasting with the mind lasers, and it's like, when did this suddenly become DBZ? Now, obviously, DBZ had been a thing for, close to a decade at this point, for the better part of a decade, regardless of which version you watch. But at the same time, that's still like, okay, when did this turn into DBZ? And I mean, if you really want to get silly with it, you can also point out that it's red beams and blue beams. Although that means blue in this case is evil. Well, screw you too, DM. Anyways. So yeah, then Pegasus's Millennium Eye is stolen, and in the Japanese version, we have a hint of Shadi. Because it zooms into the portrait, and in the dub it just cuts to the commercial. Whereas in the sub, it actually has the eyes gleam for a bit. Huh. Okay then. So then they remember the tower and his private sanctuary and goes ahead, and then they go ahead and they are like, okay. Hey, they find his journal and it's recorded. They start reading through it, which is funny because that actually reminds me of Death Note in the Japanese version because of the way they've set it up. Pegasus is an American, and thus it's written in English because he's American. Because, English is the primary language in the US, so duh. Also, apparently his dad ran a Las Vegas casino in the Japanese version. Interesting connection there. So then we get Pegasus's backstory of how he got the Millennium Eye. He talks about how when 14 years prior to this point, so when Yugi was 2 years old. Anyway, sorry. Anyways, so 14 years ago, he was, not too much older than. He's actually not that much older than Yugi, weirdly enough. Anyways, a teenage Pegasus meets teenage Cecilia or Cynthia, depending on which version you're watching. And both versions basically make it crystal clear they were in love. They basically became inseparable. But then a random illness that we don't know anything about just simply strikes Cecilia down and she dies. Now, the dub kind of downplays this a little bit, but I don't know. I think it's more effective to just see that she's gone and he's just sitting there wallowing in despair. But in both versions, of course, he learns about, the traditions of ancient Egypt and the life after death concept, and, well, I suppose he's never heard of an evil high priest named Imhotep. Sorry, it's not been that long ago since I recorded my mummy videos. I'm still needing to get that recording software so I can actually get that and this done and at this point. But yes. So during it, he follows Shadi. The sub is way more silent, by the way, which I actually think is more effective, admittedly. Again, like I said, you just combine the best parts of both and you have a fantastic episode. Ode. And then we have a retcon. Another D-Sod retcon. Now, I've only brought up a few retcons that D-Sod's going to make, but this one is kind of funny because the ring. The ring is there. Now, that just begs the question. Now, the funny thing is that just begs the question of, is Shadi currently a living person right now? And if so, how long has he been... If he's not, then how long has he been, for all intents, minor spoilers for D-Sides, how long has he been technically a ghost? Yeah. But I digress. Speaking of so then Pegasus gets tested by the eye. He succeeds, because of course he does, because this is a backstory. We know how this is going to go. And then... And he sees Cecilia again, but it's also taken away from him, which leads to the plan to mix tech and magic to revive her. Also, that goddamn commercial interlude in the in the sub. Pegasus's blood curdling scream. Aim cut to the interlude. You know what would have been far more effective? I've seen other anime with a commercial interlude thing do this. What would have been far more effective is if the interlude played while Pegasus was screaming. And then done the stupid ba ba music when it came back from commercial. How much more effective would that have been? I mean, come on. Music is an art form. Use it, as is sound design. I noticed the sound design, therefore you failed, according to many, many people. Now, granted, even if you do witness it, if it's good sound design and you notice it, well, then that just makes you observant. But if it's kind of, what the fuck sound design and you notice it, then you're just left cocking an eyebrow and going, what the fuck? So then they conclude the backstory. Or that was his whole plan all along. And then they go to see, in the dub, they go to see, in the sub, it's, well, we shouldn't leave Mokuba and Bakura alone anymore. And in the dub, it's, they want to go make sure that the others are, back up. So, cool. I suppose they would start with Mokuba anyway, but you get my point. So then Shadi finally makes his appearance and enters Yugi's mind. Now, he's weirded out by the fact that there are two chambers, right? Because, the chamber of your mind is supposed to be just the chamber of your mind, right? There's not supposed to be two chambers. Or at least that's the impression I get from this. But of course, because Yugi has two minds, he has two chambers. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing this in Rosario Vampire. I should make a note about that in one of my notebooks somewhere. Anyways, so he enters, he doesn't really bother entering into Yugi's chamber because he can just tell from a glance it's innocent. It had, there's no malice there. Okay, moving on. Then, then. So Atem is a bit of a dick in the oh, by the way, they pass by Croquet on the way up to the tower, and Croquet is actually more honest with them in the sub. He literally says that he was attacked. Like, well, in the dub, he's just like, yeah, he just fell ill. Ill, it's not my department. Go away. You know. Oh yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention. Shadi is the keeper of the Millennium Key, and we will find out later that he also is the one holding the Millennium Scales, because why not? Why not just combine those, right? I suppose. But anyways, so yeah, Atem is a bit more of a dick and basically turns Shadi's exploration of his mind into a shadow game. I know Atem's whole shtick is that he's supposed to be this morally gray guy who will zap evildoers, but I don't know. Something about Shadi just. I prefer the idea that Atem is just as intrigued by Shadi as Shadi is about Atem. It just makes more sense to me. But them's the breaks, I suppose. I do like that the Millennium Key can let you enter minds, though. That's an interesting touch. You're opening the door to somebody's mind, right? I always like that concept. So, oh, so then he mentions in both versions the theft of Pegasus's Millennium Eye, and Atem, and both versions of Atem are like, oh, so you're accusing me. And it's like, well, yes, I need to investigate every angle. And Atem in the dub literally says, guilty until proven innocent. An ancient concept for this modern time. Right? Yeah. Unfortunately, it is a custom that seems to be, seems to be human nature, and let's leave it at that. It's just an interesting idea that Atem would know these older concepts just because he's an ancient spirit, right? I don't know, just it's kind of funny that even with his memory suppressed. So then Shadi goes through the puzzle. Let's just call it what it is. Goes through the Millennium Puzzle. Puzzle deals with Atem's mental defenses. I actually prefer that concept over the shadow game. I'll just be blunt. And then Yugi helps Shadi out. This, more than anything, shows, in both versions, by the way, Yugi's altruism. Because despite the fact that this guy shows up out of nowhere, here, takes a golden key and touches his forehead while Yugi is protesting, invades his mind, Yugi is still willing to not let the guy go brain dead because of Atem's mental defenses. It's actually kind of a nice touch. He even says in the Japanese version, okay, Atem, other me, buddy, enough. Just enough. You've proven your point. Please. And that's when the door lights up. But I like the idea better that Atem's mind actually responded to Yugi because of the fact that Yugi is Atem's reincarnation. Just the way I prefer that, to be honest with you. So then they start to explore more of Atem's mind, and then Dark Magician shows up. Now, Shadi is planning to use Blue Eyes because, in the Japanese version, it's because Blue Eyes is supposed to have more power in the card game, versus apparent Blue Eyes being the arch nemesis. Which, again, like I said, kind of raises a bit of a plot hole, which I will say kind of raises a bit of a plot hole in the sub, because one, he should know the arch nemesis thing, and two, how did he not recognize the hair? Just saying. Anyways, so then Dark Magician stands down for Yugi. Now in the dub, this is where we start the stupid prophecy crap, but this actually leads to again, he's more. There's my note about the douchiness, but there's a bit of a plot reversal here in this between the sub and the dub, kind of, because on the one hand, and the prophecy thing is bleh, right? But Shadi mentions that Yugi needs to unlock the Yugis have to unlock the true power of the Millennium Puzzle, which is funny, because that's what Merrick in the dub is going to be after, isn't it? Unlocking the true power of the Millennium Puzzle, which just begs the question: would it even work? But we can talk about Merrick and his motives when we get there. Let's just say I am a complete outlier, and if you really, really like Merrick's motives in the sub, you are going to fucking hate me. Because, oh my god, what the fuck is generally my reaction, you know? Basically, the idea being he's either generic, dub, or he's a complete moron, sub. Pick your fucking poison! Anyways, but we can talk about that when we actually get to Merrick's backstory, right? One arc villain at a time here, right? So then Shadi leaves, and apparently this is the first time he's ever revealed his name to someone. Okay. And he's gone. He's just gone. And that's the end of the episode. So, yeah, the aftermath of the Duelist Kingdom has to come next episode. I actually thought about watching ahead and just one episode to determine that, but no, I am going to probably rant about that when we get there, but I can explain that in a minute. Let's stay on Shadi for a bit. Let's stay on topic. Let's stay on topic for like another minute or so. Shadi has been described. I've only heard one person argue this, and his arguments are interesting. I don't agree, for the record, but they are interesting. I think it's more of just Shadi needing to be pragmatic and operating under cold calculus. But again, we can get into that later. For now, but Shadi is actually a very interesting character, and I kind of wish they did more with him. He's only going to poke up a few times. He's going to be in that really, really dumb filler that apparently was commissioned by 4Kids, namely Capsule Monsters. And then he's going to have a brief appearance in Dawn of the Duel, and then that's the end of Shadi. What? Again, like I said, it's stuff we can talk about more when it comes up more in DSOD, but yeah. Which is an interesting question. I keep mentioning DSOD. The question then comes, am I doing all of the Yu-Gi-Oh movies? Because obviously I wouldn't do the Season 0 movie because that's Season 0, but am I doing the other DM movies? Now, I say movies as in plural loosely, but that's only because the other one is also it could also be claimed to be a DMGX and 5Ds movie, but let's face it, it's a 5Ds movie. It's advertised as a big crossover movie, but it's what it is it's a DM movie. Or I'm not not a DM movie, a 5Ds movie. And I will provide my evidence for that when we get there. That would, of course, be Bonds Beyond Time, in case you're wondering, but that's way down the line because, of course, we have to actually be in 5Ds in order for that to mean anything. And I'm going to have to look up release dates when we get there. But, anyways, and yeah, I'm going to be bending the rules and looking up certain things. But, anyways, so why am I groaning and basically saying that I wanted to watch a little bit ahead? Because next week we are going to be introduced to a character that I have never liked. Now, I know I shouldn't be prejudging this, as I said, I think it was last week or the week before, but yeah, I don't see how in the hell this this character introduction is going to escape ramp view status. Now, I do need to explain one aspect of this. Sorry about that. I don't know how much of that was heard, and I wasn't taking the chance on that because he had it so fucking loud. Anyways. Next week is a character that I'm not looking forward to talking about in the slightest. Now, in case your memory of the order of these events is fuzzy, next week is the Wrath of Rebecca and the Ties of Friendship. I'm probably just gonna call it Rebecca, as I as I will as I will probably do with Ghost Kaiba. You obviously will know whether or not I succeeded at that. But yeah, yeah. Ugh, ugh, Rebecca. Let's just say I fucking hate arrogance and leave it at that for now. And we'll also have to talk about the whole Yugi surrendering thing too when we get there. Spoilers for a shitty couple of episodes, but yeah, yeah. But yeah, this was a surprisingly decent episode for me to go through. And truth be told, I didn't know what I was going to think of it. This was just kind of one of those episodes that I just don't remember. And yet it was actually surprisingly pleasant to sit through, which is hilarious given the contrast. I can already tell I'm not going to enjoy my time like at all. This is well, okay. Minus any controversial stuff, because controversy isn't really going to factor in too much, except for the fact that I am a guy who's going to be bitching about a fucking little brat, a fucking brat of a little girl next week, but otherwise, no, controversy is not going to enter into the equation next week. But this might be a profit and lace situation, where the episode is, you know, is doing just fine. It's just a bog standard episode, and then shunk. But as per my usual, I am ranting, and like I said, that's my time. That's my cue to cut off. So, yeah, no point distribution this time. It's gonna be interesting, guys. It's gonna be interesting. I'm probably not going to go ahead and do it right now because I only have an hour left before my stream time, and today is a streaming day for me. So I'm gonna chop this off and get ready for that, and then we'll see if I'm up to it because I really just want to I just want to knock it out now. to be honest with you, I'm kind of hoping to knock season 1 out within the next day or two from my perspective, because I'm actually kind of because what's funny is it's literally gonna go one I'm dreading, one I'm highly looking forward to, and then a third multi-parter where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm gonna think of that. It'll be interesting to see, but regardless, I'm gonna go ahead and chop this off. I will chop this off, and I will see you guys next week for Rebecca Hawkins or Hopkins, depending on which version you who have. But I prefer Hawkins because I actually really like Anthony Hopkins as an actor, so I don't want that kind of association with an actor that I like. See you next week, guys. Blue Wolf Alex, the Lore Walkers, signing out. Have a good one. Duel standby.